The first thing to do will be to make a new project. Double click on the project pane. It says cache update required. We will go to update these. So the first thing we'll do is go to update the pane. Go to, this is a area that will allow us to select a hard drive and add it and save. So this is allowing permissions. Once we have that, we'll click on the media pane here. I'm going to find my media. So now what I'll do is bring in the media. I'm going to open this. It has two folders, and I'll just simply drag them down here into the master so that they have already pre-made folders and organization. The first thing we want to do is to work with the raw files. I'm going to select these, and I'm going to right click and say create timeline using selected clips. The timeline settings we want to change to 4K. So we say to format, this defaults to 1080p. We're going to go down here to full 4K DCI. It's 24p. Well, actually, we can check our settings on the clips in the metadata panel here. It says it's Blackmagic Raw 24, and that's DCI. So it matches these settings, and I'll say create. Now that that's created, I'm going to the edit mode. You can see I've got my 3 clips here. So now I'll go to the color pane. Because these are raw files, I can click the raw here and change this. So instead of project, I'll change this to clip. It automatically detects the color science is Gen 5 Blackmagic Design Gamma for Film. I'm going to leave that. You can see some of the metadata here, color temperature, exposure, and so forth. Here we find a node. This is specific to DaVinci Resolve. I will right click and go to the LUT, and I will choose Blackmagic Design and go down to Blackmagic Film. I will go to Blackmagic Gen 5 Film to Extended Video. So this is what I'm going to take a screenshot of. That is where you're going to apply that LUT. I'll do that again. Now I will apply a LUT to this node, Blackmagic Design, and I'll go to Gen 5, Film to Extended, and click. Now you can see that the change in the color, and you can see the before and after by clicking this little button up here. I will now label the node LUT, and I will add 2 more serial nodes. Add serial, add serial. This one I'll call exposure, and this one I'll call contrast. So these are going to be your basic settings before you do any other specific color grading on your nodes. All right, so now that we have this node applied, what we want to do is to check out the exposure. We're going to stay in the camera raw settings. Notice that this has a scale, and it should be sort of centered in 512, which it relatively is. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit in general so that it's between, so that the center of most of the exposure or the image is in between 512 as a midline. What we want to do is to bring the highlights closer up to the 1023 by pulling this over. And then we're going to adjust the low end to bring it down in between 128 and 0, which is like that. Notice we're in the waveform. We have the waveform selected here. That's why I can see it. You might find that it's in some other view parade. There's waveform, there's histogram, there's all kinds of things, but in the waveform view we can do these settings by moving this over. So now again we can click the before and after. Let's say we like this. We want to add maybe just a little bit of contrast. We can put a dot here and pull it down. We may or may not want to do that, but let's just say we do. So this is done. The next thing we can do is grab a still, and we could say that these are relatively similar, so we will apply this grade to this still by right-clicking up here and say apply grade. Now that is already graded. As far as this clip goes, let's apply the grade. We can apply the grade to this clip as well, although it might be a different sort of setting, but we can apply the grade, and you can see that we might want to do a little bit more correction here. This is slightly overexposed. So what we can do here is to bring this exposure down so that it's centered here. Let's bring that down. And again, we want to bring the top up, and we'll bring the bottom down. So now we have a really nice image here. We have excellent here. Let's see, this also looks a little bit overexposed, but what we can do is, first of all, we want to take the exposure down so that it's in the mid-range of 512. Then what we want to do is to bring the low end down a little bit more. The top end is clipping because of the sky, but we might want to bring it up just a little bit, sort of like that. So now we have a very nice sharp image. As far as this is not such an interesting image, this one has a lot of contrast. This has the different color gradations and so forth. It looks very sharp. So then I'm going to save project. Now that is the process. BRAW, BMPCC 4K. That's what you can do with your footage. It shouldn't have to look like this. This is the color grade that you can get from DaVinci Resolve.